Ok, je pense que je vais commencer. Euh, Bienvenue tout le monde. Je suis très heureux que vous soyez venus assister à cette importante séance d'information ce soir. Before I introduce our guest, I'd like us to give thanks and remember, as we do at all of our public events. We give thanks for the land we live on and the waters that surround us. And we remember that Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, the land upon which QWF has made its home, has been a gathering place for millennia and still remains the unceded territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka Mohawk people and other First Nations. We recognize stories and ongoing oral practices of the indigenous peoples of these lands, which inform our work as writers and literary artists. We remember that we, First Nations, Métis, Inuit, settlers, immigrants, and people brought here against their will, live in this country together. We must never forget our experiences and roles and those of our ancestors in colonization and subsequent injustices, and must strive to live alongside one another in peace, mutual respect, and as allies to steward the lands and waters that sustain us. We must walk gently and respectfully on these lands and commit to investing QWF resources and efforts towards this goal in friendship, esteem, and in pursuit of justice and equality. Et maintenant, j'aimerais souhaiter la bienvenue à Pierre-Yves Villeneuve, le président de l'Union des écrivaines et des écrivains québécois, known to most of us as UNEQ. Pierre-Yves, just so you know, is also a very successful author and has filled many different word-related roles over the course of his career, from selling books to constructing crossword puzzles, which intrigues me. Tonight, we're grateful to him for coming to present to us on the progress UNEQ has made since last year's presentation towards negotiating standard contracts to protect all writers in Quebec. I'd also like to acknowledge Julie Barlow, who's here tonight, former QWF president. Julie continues to serve our organization by collaborating on our behalf with UNEQ. It's something she's been doing since she was president, maybe back in the days of COVID, I think, early days of COVID. And it's largely because of Julie's very proactive role that UNEQ has included English language authors in the planning and consultations around this project right from the beginning. So thank you, Julie. And two more things before I turn it over to Jean-Yves. Please type your questions in the chat, and we'll get to as many of them as we can at the end of Pierre-Yves' presentation. We plan on wrapping this up at about 8:30, but if your question isn't answered, you can email it to me or to John, and we'll get an answer and get back to you. So that's it. Take it from here, Pierre-Yves.
Thank you, Laurie. Good evening, everyone. It's very nice to meet you. I'm happy to be here to explain where we are with this new modification in our work. So, as you know, in June, I'm gonna go with a brief history of what happened in the last year. If anyone doesn't know what's been happening, which explains where we are. And after that, I'm going to tell you what we are currently doing in this matter. So, in June of 2022, the government of Quebec changed the law, la loi sur le statut de l'artiste, the law on the artist, which governs movies, TVs, writers, literature. So everyone has an artistic domain. Since 1990, when the first law was passed, there were two laws. One which granted the power for people in the TV business, movie business, music industry to negotiate collective agreement with producers, and there was a weaker law with which we fell under with literature and les métiers d'art, which this part of that was the main difference. We didn't have the power to bargain with the producers, with the publishers, to have a collective agreement, meaning that every contract we had to negotiate had to be one-on-one. So everyone was trapped in this law because we had no bargaining power. So since June 2022, every artist has been is now under the same law. The visual artists just signed a couple of months ago their first collective agreement with museums, and we are working towards the same goal with the publishers. So why l'UNEC? Why does the French Union des Écrivains has this power to negotiate for every writer, member or not? Well, it's inscribed in the law because the UNEC has over 1,600 members. We are recognized by the Tribunal Administratif du Travail, the tribunal, as the most representative association. There are many associations, writer associations. There's the QWF. There's the Young Writers Association, l'Association des écrivains pour la jeunesse du Québec. You have regional associations, but the most representative, the association which has the most history and the most members is l'UNEC, which has been a syndicate since its foundation in 1977. Sorry. So if it wasn't l'UNEC, it would be another union. What we have to understand about this law is that it was a request from writers to be recognized as true artists, to have this bargaining power. And if it wasn't l'UNEC, it would have been another association. But this role falls onto us, and we are trying to do what is best for every writer to come to negotiate a collective agreement which will raise the minimum conditions of our contracts. Because, as you know, um, the conditions under which we work are oral agreements, meaning like uh, the 10% in royalties that we have with the sale of our books. Uh, it's just an unwritten rule. If this law didn't exist, and if the publishers decided that, well, writers should have 5%, and everyone decided to have contracts with the writers at 5% royalties, we wouldn't have any bargaining except saying, well, we're not going to sign your contract. But individually, it's going to be harder to negotiate a good contract. So we have this power of the numbers to get better conditions. Um, so there's a history on why we are here. And so I'm gonna go through also because we had an Assemblée Générale, so a general meeting of our members last spring. Uh, and so we agreed, we had some decisions made about the union dues and also with the list of demands, which we're gonna carry on. Some of you may have noticed also we had a great consultation of the members. We invited Anglophones also to answer, to know better what were the individual obstacle in our profession, what were the problems we met, what was going well, how many books, how much money we can make. So we needed many information, and this quest for information is going to go through the next years because we're going to have more data coming in as we're going to see the contracts coming in. Because like one of the main information everyone ignores, which no one knows how many writers there are in the province. This is an unknown number. Even the publishers do not know how many writers there are because it's a number that's floating around. We have active writers, we have writers that are writing maybe another book. So what's a writer? What's it's information we're gonna gather in the coming years. Uh, I think I'm gonna share my screen so I can go over the documents we that you received. It's gonna be easier. If you have any questions, don't hesitate either to raise your hand or to type it in the chat. Um, just to have the good. Okay, I'm gonna start with what was decided at the last meeting. UNEQ, membership. Okay, I'm thinking this one. Okay, I think you have. Do you see the document? Okay, and
I can just break in
it's
on my screen. It's pretty small, so I'm not sure like if everybody can. It is
I
there.
What I can do as well is share the link to the document in the chat. So
That's
this is
good, right?
membership fees and dues. Is that right?
Good though, what you've done
yes.
is great. Okay.
Great.
Is it better like this?
That's perfect. Yeah. Well, for me,
Perfect. Okay.
and maybe.
And for anyone who can't see it on Pierre-Yves' screen, you can just read along by following that link.
And okay, and I have another one. I have some notes. So, like I said, we the members in this gathering on which was it was intense. It was long. We had to split it on 2 days, so May 10th and June 14th. We adopted the list of demands, which were it's a the document you have access to. It's a resume. It's the information we gathered from the answers from those who answered the great consultation. So it's not, of course, we have some information, have some expertise because we've seen contracts over the years, but we asked people to tell us what were the problems, what have you encountered with your publishers to know better what we have to work on. The main subject, the main decision that was adopted was the contribution, so the union dues of 4%. So I'm gonna just explode it right now. I'm gonna get back to it after. So what was adopted is there's gonna be a union of 4% deducted from the income from all contracts signed on or after May 10th. And this is with l'Association nationale des éditeurs and SOJDES, which are the two main associations which received a notice of negotiation. So 4% deducted, and there is a 50% rebate calculated on December, so at the end of the year, December 31st, which brings the union dues from 4 to 2% for union members. Excluding translators, I'm gonna get back to that after. So there was a change in membership. Can go, uh, which is gonna go over that. Um, okay, so the with the union, you have so we have l'UNEQ. For those who don't know, we are the union. We represent authors. We can intervene in the problems on their behalf, and we also have government programs that we run. So we receive huge lumps of sum. Example for the writers in Cégep, we have les tournées rencontres on the French side also, Parlez-moi d'une langue, Culture à l'école. So programs going from primary school to Cégep University and libraries. So it's when authors have promotion, you can get a it's not a grant, but you get un cachet. Julie, help me out.
A fee? You're
A
talking about
fee, thank you. Yeah, so you can get a fee if you go to school. It's not the school that's paying, it's the government that's paying our salary for this meeting, this workshop with kids. So there are two sides to our work, which are financed uh, by two sides, by two incomes, two different incomes. So every program there is, every advantage to being a member of l'UNEQ, like you can be a member of a QWF, it comes from the membership fee, which is for experienced writers, $150 a year. We have so with all the membership, it can start as low as $50 a year for students in literature, and it's going to go up depending on the experience you have with publications. In our contrary to what you might have seen with writers in the US, here in Quebec, being a member of a union is a voluntary choice. No one can force you to be a member of a union. You have to make that choice. You have to become a member of the union to benefit from the different programs or advantages. Um, on the other side, so okay, I'm gonna first go over when we pay. So it's the membership is paid on April 1st. Like I said, it's $150 for regular members, and you have access to the programs and voting rights at the assembly. Um, what we are aiming, what exists with other cultural unions, artistic unions, is the union contribution, the union dues, which will be deducted from the royalties we make, the royalties we receive from the publishers. So so the law applies to every artist, whether he or she is a member or not of the union. We have to represent every member, every artist in the province, regardless of the of their membership. So if a non-member has a problem with the publisher, we're going to represent them also. And with the collective agreement, this with unions, when you have a collective agreement, this agreement applies to everyone. So I'm going to take the l'ANEL, Association nationale des éditeurs de livres, which has over 100 publishers. So if you're publishing with the l'ANEL, you might be a member or not. And when we'll sign an agreement with them, this agreement is going to apply to every writer under publishing a book with l'ANEL, whether or not they are a member. So you're going to benefit from the agreement and under the law, under the rules in Quebec. So since everyone in the union, whether they are a member or not, I'm sorry if it's if my explanation is not clear, but in compliance with the RAND formula, you have to contribute because you are benefiting from the agreement. So the two first group of publishers we are aiming to negotiate an agreement is l'ANEL and Sejdice. On the French side of publishing, it's like 80% or 85% of everything that's being published is going to be under those two groups. And after that, we have like 40 indie publishers that we are going to have to meet. And when we have a first agreement, there's going to be a mechanism for the indie publishers to join the already existing agreement. So it's going to be easier because they won't have the interest. They won't have. It's not going to be at their advantage to try and negotiate something that's radically different from what has been agreed by over 100 publishers, which are the main ones. The big ones are all in there. So it would be really weird to have these two groups representing 85% of French publishers and someone standing out saying, no, that's not going to apply to me. I'm going to be like totally different. I'm going to pay totally different royalties. Everything's going to be every condition for the writer is going to be different with me. So what we expect and what I know from talking to publishers is they're waiting for us and they're probably gonna just jump in the agreements. It's what we see with other in the other artistic domains. If you talk like la Sartec for scriptwriters, you have main those main agreements, and the small producers are gonna just jump in the already existing agreements because it's easier for them. Contrary to the membership, which is paid one time on April 1st or around April 1st, for the union dues, it's going to be paid, it's going to be deducted by the publisher when they are paying the royalties. So you won't have to make the 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 the, the calculation of how much you owe. It's going to be, it's like a salary. Uh, you're gonna receive your check and the on the paper saying, well, you sold X number of books. There's gonna be a new line saying union dues is 4%. So that's gonna come out. Um, and like I said, we are trying to make it easy for publishers. That's why they are taking the 4%. They will not have to check if the writer is a member or not of UNEQ. They will just apply the 4%. And at on the 31st of March, UNEQ is gonna check the books, make sure the union members receive half of that money, half of the money they paid. So the union dues is gonna come back to 2% for members. One note that's not in the document for native writers, because for a technical reason, it cannot come from l'UNEQ. They for union right for native writers, they will only have 2% deducted from their royalties. So that's going to be the main distinction. And so this money is gonna help with negotiating the collective agreements with the les griefs when we have what do you say, une plainte?
Complaints, but if people file complaints, you have to pay for a
A
lawyer.
complaint.
Yeah, you have
Yes.
to pay
So
for a
when you
lawyer.
have complaints, when because we're gonna have also to hire someone else. So like it said in the on the last line, hiring a person specialized in labor relations to check every contract, making sure that it respects the collective agreement. If in our collective agreement we say, well, we have agreed to 11% base royalty for everyone, and you didn't know and you signed a contract at 9%, and your publisher made sure to wrap that in honey and perfume, saying that's a very good deal for you. When you say, well, no, your deal is illegal, and the minimum the writer has to receive, it has to be 11%, and your contract will be corrected, and you will receive what has been agreed. Um, The union dues also pays for our membership with la FNCC, which is la Fédération nationale de la communication et des communications de la culture, which is affiliated with la CSN. So they have experience with, well, they're a big union. They have experience with la loi sur le statut de l'artiste. We are currently working with them. We have two counselors helping us. So we have lots of services from la FNCC, and it's costing, of course, it's costing a lot of money, but it costs a lot less than if we had to call a specialized service for each and every if we needed a marketing team, a consultant, a lawyer for something, if we had complaints, if we had to mobilize our members. So all those services, it's like an insurance because we have everything all at once and have lots of tools. We'll also be developing digital tools. We need a secure server to receive each and every contract from the publishers. These contracts have to remain confidential. We don't want that to be going out on the public, so we have to make sure there's a digital space that is highly secure for the writers. I'm sure I forgot something, but it's gonna come back later. Any questions about that? Was I clear enough?
We don't have any questions in the chat yet.
Okay, great. All right, so what will be concerned, what's the income that's going to be concerned with the union dues? It's only what it is in our contracts with the publishers. So royalties or advanced royalties that we receive upon signing our contract or delivering the manuscript, that's going to be concerned with the union dues. What is not affected, so any contract you have signed with a publisher before May 10th. I have 20 books that I've published before May 10th. Yeah, written, well, signed, anyway, 20 books signed, written before May 10th. So these books are not concerned by the union dues. Everything signed after is going to be concerned. With the exception, it's not gonna be automatic. Like right now, we don't have any notice of negotiation with any English publisher. So you're not concerned right now. But if you have signed a book yesterday or this morning, even though it will eventually be concerned, any money that is paid before there's a letter of agreement with the publisher, before there is a notice of negotiation, it won't be concerned, and we won't be going back in time to track the money. Meaning that if it takes us a year to get to the English publishers, well, that on that year you've received if you've received like 90% of what you're gonna make with a specific book, well, it's gonna be free of union dues. And after that, there will be a time where everything is in place and every publisher has an agreement and everyone will be everyone will be rolling under this new system of union dues. If you receive money from not collective agreements, sorry, but from copyright collectives, such as Copybec in Quebec or Access Copyright in the English on the other side of the frontier, in the rest of Canada, this is not concerned by the union dues because it's not there's not a sum paid by your publisher. It's money coming directly from Copybec to your pocket, and which is actually split 50-50 with your publisher. Uh, Same goes for the Public Lending Right Program, which we call the DPP in French. This is money from the government. If you're receiving grants from the government, it's not money that has a union to a union due. You don't have dues to pay on that money. Same goes with any program like Quebec Writers in Cégep, sorry, or Tourne à l'école or Culture à l'école, which are programs that are uh, paid for by the government. And also reimbursement or expenses when you have a promotion tour. It's not considered a salary, even though we're going to try to negotiate baseline for the promotion tours, making sure that everyone has expenses paid by your publisher. You won't have dues to pay on that. Um, mm, 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 mm. So if I get to the example, um, so for a book paid, so a retail price of $20 for a book, we're getting a baseline of 10% of royalties. We sold 500 copies, which means $2 per books. So oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. No, okay. Just mixing two stuff. Lots of info in my head. Okay, so if you have a book that is sold $20 and you're supposed to receive 10% of royalties, that means $2, and you have sold 500 copies, you're supposed to receive $1,000. If you receive an advance of $500, we're gonna deduct that from what you're supposed. Well, the publisher is gonna deduct that from what he is supposed to pay. You might have a reserve, a 25% reserve, which is kind of high. I've seen lower reserve. I don't know what the habit is on the English side, or I see more like 15% on the French side. I have some publishers which didn't take anything. Anyway, so 25% at reserve. So he's going to deduct $125, which would be paid the next year. And you would receive $375 for the 500 copies since you've already received 500. Contribution of 4% would be $15. So this would be deducted, and the publisher would send the money directly to UNEQ. So what you would receive would be $360 plus tax, so $413 and 91 cents. If you're a member of UNEQ, on the 31st of March, you would receive $7.50 back because this contribution of 4% is for everyone, but members only pay a contribution of 2%. So you have a 50% rebate. And I think that's it on this side. So that's the function of how the way it should function. And for the first year, we also extended the deadline because we know it's going to be a new process. We are trying to make this as easy as we can for the publishers. We've started talking to them about the letter of agreements, but we haven't sat down yet. So normally this will be on the 31st of March, except for the first year, we're extending the delay to June for the first year for the 50% rebate that LUNEC is going to give back to the members. You might not be affected because, like I said, if we haven't sent any notice of negotiation to LALEC or to English publishers, well, you wouldn't be concerned. You wouldn't have union dues to pay. So that would be a problem for 2027. Do you have any questions about the union dues before I move on to the list of demands?
I do have some
Yes.
questions that have come in. They're not explicitly about the dues, but they do relate. I'll ask them.
Yeah, maybe I'll just jump in. Maybe it would be worth explaining where the 4% came from. So people know it was voted by members.
Yeah.
It was
So
hotly and long debated. That's why the meeting took two whole days. But maybe you can just give everybody a bit of background about that.
I'm going to go back 2 years. So the first assembly we had discussion right after June 2022, right after the adoption of the new law. The board of l'UNEQ at that time proposed a union dues of 5% for non-members and 2.5% for members. And there was there had been a mistake while for the transmission of documents. It hadn't been done with the right delay of time, and there wasn't much people in that assembly. I think it was like 45 people that voted for this measure. So it kind of got fast. We ended up in a crisis, and people were saying like, we don't understand what's going on. So during the last 2 years, what the new board did is we try to be as much we try to be as transparent as we could. We've done more consultation. We've given out information. We had meetings to explain what was going to be done, what needed to be done to achieve this objective of getting a collective agreement for riders. And we also had to research how much it would cost because, like I was saying, the affiliation with la FNCC, it costs about 200 grand a year. We have a rebate from them we have a financial agreement with them for the first 5 years. They've given us a lump sum. We also have a progressive amount. So first year we were paying like 60,000, second year it's like 85, and it's gonna go up over 5 years. So, but this is a way to make sure that we do not collect too much of a sum from the riders. And we've had a discussion and we've remade we've checked what was needed, and it's hard to determine exactly what's needed because, like I said, we are missing lots of information. Also because some booksellers like Renaud don't give out their numbers, the number of sales they make. You might know there's something we call la BTLF, la Banque de titres de langue française, which has a module called Gaspard. Gaspard, it's a software program, and it's used by publishers, bookstores, distributors, and they have live access to the sales at the cash register. So for the oldest of you, we know that I've been in this in the book business for 25 years, and 25 years ago, well, less than 25 years ago, to truly know what an author would sell, it would take over a year. So that's why we were only getting paid once a year because the publisher would send out the books, the library would sell some, order some, there's movement, and they have uh, uh, they have a number of books that they can return if they're not sold. So you might think you've sold in one library like 100 books, but actually they've sold only 10 and you're getting back 90. So if the publisher's paying you upfront the 90 books, he's gonna be out of business very soon. So they would not pay before the year was up because they could not get the numbers right. With the help of Gaspard, we have better numbers, but it only accounts for 60 to 65% of the market in the province, which is better than before, but still. So we, like I said, we are desperately in need of information. This is the number we were able to calculate that was so based on what's selling, how much are the books worth, what's the movement, what we can extrapolate as a number of what we can realistically think we will obtain after years of implementing this new system. And so we had, like Julie said, it was a very long discussion. We've had 5 or 6 different propositions with like a 4% or a 3% with the top amount to pay or something. And every proposition we had was rejected because it was a question of fairness. Because if you have a top amount saying like, well, everyone's going to pay a flat rate of 3%, but there's going to be a max of $2,000 payable to in union dues. Well, that means that the writers that are selling less are going to contribute more than the writers that are selling more. Having a percentage like this makes sure that everyone has an equivalent contribution to this system. So that's and this number might change over the years. It's possible that, let's say in 5 years, we look at our numbers and we're saying we're getting too much money. If we're getting too much money, we're going to go in the assembly, we're going to propose to the members, well, 4% and 2% for the members, that's too much. Maybe it's like 3 and 1.5. Or it might go the other way. It's well, we need more. We're going to have to raise to 2.25 and 4.5. So that number might change over the years, but it's a decision that is not made by the board. It's a decision that is made by the members in a general assembly. But for the time being, it's going to be 4% for non-members and 2% for the members. Any more questions about?
There's
I'm
a.
just gonna, sorry, Julie. Go ahead.
I was just going to say there is a question in the chat about the
Yeah,
4%.
that's what I'm going to take care of the questions in the chat. There was a question about the 4%, but Cora, nod to me if you feel that's been answered. Or would you like me to ask it?
Yeah, no, it's been answered to some extent.
Okay. All right. So the first question we have is, are any independent Anglophone publishers in Quebec members of ANEL or SOGID?
Not to my knowledge. I was trying, maybe Julie, you have an answer on this part?
I
I'm not
don't
sure.
know. It's a good question. I would be surprised, but it is worth exploring. I think we would have heard by now.
Maybe drawn and quarterly. I'm not sure. I can check real quick. No. So honestly, I don't think there are any right now that there are any English publishers in Lanel. I thought Drawn and Quarterly might have been, but they don't seem to be. Uh, and like I said, it's going to be a long process because it's the first one. It's the first collective agreement for the writers. It's the first collective agreement for the publishers. After that, well, we're gonna go through probably Lanel and Sojdice at the same time on a different scale. And after that, we'll have all the indies in French, and probably at the same time, we'll be talking with Lalique.
Okay, next question. Is UNEQ expecting to be implementing similar collective bargaining for contracts with Quebec newspapers, magazines, including online publications?
It's it's a how do I say this? Um, we have actually, if there, it's it's a question of jurisdiction. So there are some unions that already represent, like for not magazines, but the journalists. There's other associations that are gonna uh, deal with this with with the producers. So right now it's all in book form. So we the mandate is for the writers. So we represent the writers. It's not only the publishers because we're gonna have discussions also with the events planners, the producer, like the Salon du Livre, with la QSL, who represents 9 book fair in Quebec. So it could be with more than just the publishers. We could go with other with the magazines. I'm not sure because there's like La CEDEP is part of it's the producers. I'd have to check with that. But if it's creative writing, it might fall under our collective hat.
Okay,
Um,
I think we've gotten all we can get from you on that one right now.
yeah. I
We
know
have one.
I had a writer asking that, like, because we have a couple of French magazine like Solaris or Alibi, which are 2 magazines affiliated with Alire in Quebec, which is a publisher that does a lot of sci-fi fantasy books, and it's the same team that works on the magazines. And we had a writer asking us, are you gonna represent us, making sure that the fees we get are, because we know the fee with magazine has not gone up over the last year, it has gone down. So uh, there is a possibility for us to work with that avenue.
Okay, we have one more question in the chat right now. Some writers in Quebec are members of the Writers' Union of Canada. What conversations has UNEQ had in terms of coordinating with the Writers' Union regarding overlap of responsibilities, membership, activities? Do you just consider the Writers' Union the union for writers outside Quebec?
Um,
And I will
uh,
say that is from our regional representative, Quebec representative, who has had to leave the meeting, unfortunately, but will be following up by watching the video. So your answer will go directly to the Writers' Union.
that's a good question. I Geneviève Lauzon, which was our general manager up to the last month. She probably had more contacts with the Association of Canadian Writers. And she had contacts with every association there is. She worked for l'UNEQ for 25 years. But now she quit and she is working at La Sartec. So if you're a scriptwriter, and you know her, you're gonna find her at La Sartec. So I personally did not have any contacts yet with the Canadian Writers Association. Um, Honestly, I don't think there's going to be overlap because it's jurisdiction wise, it's something that's peculiar to Quebec. So if you're publishing, and there's so if you're publishing with a publisher its headquarters is based outside of Quebec, he's not going to be concerned with this agreement because the law doesn't apply to them. Same if you are working with an American publisher or a UK publisher, they're not concerned with this law. The difference is for a writer from outside of Canada and outside of Quebec that would sign with a Quebecois publisher, which has an agreement. It's like having a worker from out of Canada coming in. You're benefiting from everything that has been negotiated for the workers here. You have la CNSST, you have protections, you have minimum salary, and you have dues to pay, you have taxes to pay. So it's going to be the same principle if there's a French writer or UK writer that signs with someone in Montreal, publishes his book. Well, the contract is going to be unionized, even though he's based outside of Canada, because he's benefiting from what we have negotiated with the publishers. If you're working with someone who is outside of Quebec, it would not apply. But we are working with every association, even though I personally didn't have any contacts with them. And one thing I have not mentioned yet is, and we are aware of that, is that there are lots of association, lots of regional association. You have the Québec Writers, you have l'UNEQ, you have l'Association des auteurs pour la jeunesse, Culture Jeunesse. We have so many membership that we can pay. It's gonna drown us in membership fees. We have to try and find a way to make sure that we don't pay $1,000 in fees, in membership fees, just to be, well, I have to be with QWF, well, I have to be with UNEC, I have to be with this and that and the regional one. We have to find a way to make sure that, well, maybe we're gonna have a rebate because we are with two association, make sure that the association also get the money that they need to work. So it's gonna be which it's a reflection that it's something that we are working on.
Okay, I think we have another one. Yes, so someone is asking, are you going to be negotiating with Anglophone publishers the way you have with Anel and Sojides?
Yes. Yes, we will. And the it's already going really well because lots of publishers are either writers or friends with writers. Many of them are aware of our situation. Many want us to have better quality, better work conditions, and they know that bad publishers give a bad name to every publisher. So they want a collective agreement because it's going to be in their interest, because rooting out the bad apples is going to make the le domaine de la littérature, everyone in this field is going to be better for it when we have rooted out the bad apples, which don't respect the authors, which don't pay their royalties in time, which we have problems with editors that don't emit the fiscal receipt in time. Uh, there's one who has 2 years, who's 2 years late with the fiscal receipt, which is unacceptable. So this is the problems that we deal with, which nobody knows because it's done in the offices with emails and letters and contacting the government and the agencies. But we don't talk about that in the media or when we do meetings. So uh, and some of you may remember we had I think it was like 15 years back, a French publisher, which was really big, Broquet. And Broquet got caught because he was receiving subsidies and grants from the government, and he had financial difficulties, and he was charging the authors of his house to make the books. So basically, he went from a traditional publisher to a self-publishing type of house, charging thousands of dollars to the authors to make the books. And since they were young, they didn't know any better until they did. And when it got out, it was a huge blow to the other publishers because everyone was considered a crook.
Mm.
So that's why they want this collective agreement because it's gonna rein in the bad ones which have bad practices.
And Pierre, if I can just jump in for a sec.
Yes.
QWF held a kind of like focus group in the very early stages of this process to talk to writers about what kinds of concerns they had along those lines dealing with and what kind of bad experiences they'd had with publishers. And then those questions, the answers to those questions were remarkably similar, if I recall, to what the Francophones were saying. I mean, it was not different at all. And then those answers were funneled into the survey that I assume many of you did. And the results of the survey also were not different based on language. They were remarkably similar. So it's the same concerns, that are feeding this, and we're assuming that the same concerns and dynamic is there with the publishers as well. And it could be the same effect that, it puts an end to some bad publishing practices, and the good publishers are happy for that to happen. I mean, that's the hope.
Yes.
So, we'll cross our fingers and we'll see. I mean, we heard some, in the early focus group we did with, I think, a dozen writers, we heard some horror stories too about terrible practices that were completely unfair.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it keeps happening.
Mhm.
And since the first law the first law sur le statut de l'artiste, the first one was passed in 1990. And we've tried to sit down with the publishers to have just a contract for everyone, like basic contract, and every time it failed. Either they didn't want to negotiate, or we went up to having something almost signed and like they bailed out. We couldn't get an agreement for a baseline contract. So unfortunately, we had to resort to lobbying the government, changing the law, and now, well, we have the full power of the union to negotiate a collective agreement for everyone, and it has to be done in respect to the publisher's capacity to pay. And I'm sure it's the same reality with the English publishers. Not everyone has the same. You have some publishers that do this out of passion. They don't get a salary. They don't have any money. They do only poetry. And you have big publishers that have tons of employees. So it's not a simple solution like if you're in a shop saying, well, we only make plates, white plates, and everyone does the same job. It's easy to calculate saying, well, this is what we want in our collective agreement. If I write a poetry book, or if I write a history book, or if I write young adult novel, it's not the same reality, it's not the same market. It's so we're gonna have lots of scales to be determined with the publishers to make sure that it's done in our interest, but also out of respect to what they can pay. Uh, so because we don't want anyone to go bankrupt because we're asking for X% more of royalties or because we're trying to have expenses paid. But if a publisher gets bigger, they won't be able to escape their responsibilities if they go from being small, having lots of success, having lots of books, saying, well, I have my books went from selling 100 copies in confidential events going to, well, I have 10 books on the New York Times bestselling list. Well, maybe something's about to change. You're gonna have something to give back to the authors you have.
I'm
So
just
I
going to
might, yes, Laurie, go ahead.
there's a question that's very pertinent, but again, Cora, I feel like maybe that's been answered, or do you want me to pose the question? I will. Okay. I would also acknowledge that many publishers have very good intentions, but are operating with very low profit margins, like many writers. Do you have a sense of the industry's fragility from your discussions with publishers in Quebec?
Yes, absolutely. Because, like I've said, I've been working in this industry for 25 years since 1998. I was at l'Université de Montréal. I was working at Renaud-Bré at the time. After that, I went and I worked with a very small publishing house. I was the only employee there with no resources. I went working also with HMH. After that, I was sales rep. I've been an editor with HMH also, and I know the people in the business. And so I very well, and I also have a neighbor who is an editor in the small town where I live. So I know the reality of this industry. I know that some publishers have lots of money and others have none. And that's the thing that we have to make it work. And it's the same, like I was talking earlier about the visual artists. So their union is called le RAV, le Regroupement des Artistes en Arts Visuels, and they're signing with museums. And you have across the province very big museums like le Musée des Beaux-Arts or the Musée de la Civilisation. And you have small regional museums which do not have the same bank accounts as those big entities. So they have different scales. So if you're part of, well, scale one, you have X to pay to your artist. If you're up to this amount of, if if you're le chiffre d'affaires, if the business you run is highly popular, well, it's gonna change the scale. So what I mean that we have to treat the other party with respect is mostly because of that, because we have Québécois on one side and we have Hurlante Édition or small poetry houses, which they don't even have any money to pay an advance royalty to their authors. So we know we're stretched over everything over there. So it's going to be done to make sure that nobody goes bankrupt, nobody goes out of business. They can continue, but if it works for them, it has to work for us also.
No more questions
So
in the chat.
no more questions. Okay, I'm gonna continue with the list of demands just to show you what we have. And so this was worrying quite a lot of person last time. I think it's very small. Just
It's small again, just yeah.
yeah, I have too many windows open. Just kind of. All right. This, et puis
There you go. Perfect. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
A little,
Like
maybe
this.
you could maybe make it a little taller so we can see a little bit more of the text.
But
Voilà.
just
Okay.
gonna fix that real quick.
There you go.
Okay.
That works.
Okay. The other one, the other one, the other one. C'est bon. Okay. All right. All right. So one thing I forgot to mention, well, actually, I started mentioning it a couple of minutes ago, is that our general manager has unfortunately left us. So Geneviève Lauzon is no longer with UNEQ. But we have recruited Hélène Otton. Hélène it was the general manager at la SODEP, which is it's la Société de développement des périodiques. She was working for magazines. She has been sitting also on the board of Quebec. She has a master's and a PhD in literature. She knows the industry, she knows the business. She is very much appreciated in the industry. Brought her with me at the cocktail of Lanel. She met Geneviève Pigeon, who is the president of Lanel, and they were both geeking out together because they both studied in demonology, which is religious literature. And there's like 6 people in Quebec, and there's 2 of them. So they were, okay, I'm gonna go to get a beer, you to talk together. I don't understand what they're saying. That was very nice. So she's been working with us. So Hélène has been with us since the end, so for 3 weeks. So the curb is very high for her, but she's doing fine. And she is invested in this mission with us. So I'm very proud. Um, and if you have any question, do not hesitate. You can talk to her directly, like you did with Geneviève. She's very open. She will answer your questions. Um, so, I also wanted to present to you the bargaining committee. Like I said, there are 2 counselors from la FNCC. We have Julien Carrier-Boucher, who's a lawyer. We have Samuel Trépanier, who's the main contact we have over there. Hélène is also on the bargaining committee, also myself, and there is Jean-Philippe Bergeron. Jean-Philippe Bergeron is a poet. He works at Copibec, which negotiates collective rights and reproduction rights. And he is also the president of the Union of the Workers of Copibec. And we have also Erika Soucy with us on the bargaining committee. Erika is a writer, poet, scriptwriter. She also goes on the radio, on the Radio-Canada. She does a lot of critiques. Very nice, very much appreciated writer and poet. And she also organized like the Off Festival de Poésie de Trois-Rivières. So they are both committed to the betterment of our condition, of our working condition. They're both invested quite a lot. So it's a nice team that we have. So I'm gonna go quickly over this because it's already 8:15. So basically, what we would like to do with what we want to negotiate with the publishers is what came out of the consultation is that artists want more control over their work, and they want more control also over the rights that we can bargain with the publishers. So we would like to separate what we have right now is a single contract. So you sign a contract for a book, and that's it. the book gets made, or if there's something happening. I've had contracts that were rescinded because the publisher called me and saying like, "Wow, we're having financial difficulties. We have too many books coming out. We were not satisfied. If you want to go out and go with someone else, it's going to be fine. We can rescind we're gonna rescind the contract." But otherwise, if when you sign with the publisher, you're stuck with that publisher for that book. What we'd like to happen is have a two-part contract, an option, which would mean uh, we're going into development with the publisher. So the editorial process, everything going up to right before the book goes to print would be the option side of the contract. And after that, if there wasn't any major disagreement, if both parties are satisfied, which would happen 99% of the time, you have then the license part of the deal, which will be triggered at the end of the editorial process, when you agree with the proof, and then you have the contract, which we have right now, but it would start later in the process. Because sometimes you have a publisher that's going to try and distort the idea you have. They're going to produce a book you're not satisfied with, and you don't have any say. If you have signed a contract, the publisher can do basically whatever they want with your book. So with that new deal, you could opt out, saying, "No, I'm not satisfied of the work we're doing right now. You're taking my book somewhere I do not want. That's not my work. I'm not recognizing it. I'm pulling out." Which is something we don't have the option to do right now. So that would be the process. You would have the possibility, the option to get out of this contract, and then you would have the license entering at the end of this of the process. We want also to bargain the duration of the contracts. 5 years, it might seem very, very short. I agree. It's actually an answer to what the publishers are doing right now, which is they are trying to have sometimes the uh, contracts that are for the duration of copyright in Canadian law, that's up to your death plus 70 years, which is very, very long. So most, I'm guessing we're going to go around 7 to 10 years, which is the acceptable duration of a contract. We'd like to have a written agreement for renewal of contracts and not a tacit renewal. What do I have over here? And also, like, well, this is pretty standard renewal periods that are shorter than the initial term. In my contracts, it's like 7 years for the first initial period, then 3 years after that. And also, like, no right of first refusal. There you have big houses right now that are trying to put that to plug that in our contracts. You have experienced writers that are uh, being tied hand and feet to a house because the publishers are bringing back this type of clause. And I have one friend who always forgot to take this clause out. She has 30 books published with many houses, and one of them always put that first right of first refusal. So she was stuck with that until she did not forget. She reminded herself, take this out at the next contract. She wrote a book, All right. And she was always dissatisfied with what they were doing. So it was good for her to get out of of this of this clause. Um, one thing I haven't mentioned with this the new process is also that we want the artist to retain any and all rights on the work they have done. If the option and license, so the two-part contract is agreed upon, we'd like to have to make sure that the artist working with the publisher retains any and all rights on what has been rewritten. Um, you're not a salary worker. What you are writing is your propriety. And even though you're working with the notes of a publisher, you should be able to own what you have worked on. So even though you might have added chapters on your book, if at the end, like something happens, you break the contract off, you have the what you have written, worked, transformed with the help of the publisher is still yours. They cannot claim any part of it, saying, "Well, you've written under my house, and that's ours." Um, on rights granted, um, tu- 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 tu. All right. On rights right granted, the note I've put down is that we are trying to limit what we are. So I'm not sure on the what happens in the English side if you have to uh, grant when you sign a contract, do you grant all the rights to the publisher, or is it a license that you are signing for the exploitation of the book? Julie, do you have a
I'm not sure I understand the distinction. When you sign for those, they are part of the package of conditions in the contract that you sign or don't sign. So I would, strike them out of some of the contracts so that,
because we've seen two types of contracts. First one would be you grant everything to your publisher and they own everything related to the work. And usually that comes with the duration clause that is the duration of the copyright law.
Mhm.
Or it's more like a licensing agreement saying, well, you have the right to publish a written or digital print of my book for X years. It's not an agreement that's good for the whole universe in every languages across all dimensions. It's for something that is very specified. Um, if you can, we can think of it as with with any les droits dérivés, the rights of adaptations for theater, TV, movies, etc. If you make figurines or comic books, you're gonna have a secondary contract that's gonna grant a license for a very specific product to be made. But the initial contracts usually forgets that, and we are granting away something that is very, very large. So we're trying to remind the publishers that they are publishers. And I know that in the English publishing, and it's in Canada and US, um, there you have more literary agents, and traditionally the publisher in Quebec, in French Quebec, was the agent. They would get the rights and they would negotiate for everything on behalf of the authors. So that's a major distinction, getting them back to be publishers. you are making books. You're not a TV producer. You are not a movie producer. You're not making a theater play. You are making books. So we want to remind them of that. And if they want to have the option on one part of those rights that can be adapted from their works, well, they can be a producer and they can option that right for a limited period of time. So that's something that might change. Uh, we're hoping because we have more agents on the French side coming. So it's something new that's coming that is in the French culture, having literary agents. So that might change the dynamic of what is happening. Um, So like I said, see, it's the possibility of granting an option for a related right. So if they want to be doing a translation, if they want to be if one they do the audiobook, because we've had lots of situations where the publishers would sit on the contracts and do nothing. The writers would do all the work, and then the publishers would wait for the deals to be made and just sign at the bottom of the contract and get half of the money. So it's a change of dynamics. So if they want an option, an exclusive option, it's possible we're going to monetize it. And they'll have to report in writing what they've done. So if you have, like in the movie business, if you have a producer that wants to have an option on your book, it doesn't last for 10 years. It's gonna last for like 2 years. They're gonna pay a chunk of money. They're gonna have 2 years, and after 2 years, well, we're not going to development. We don't have any idea. We don't have money. We don't think it's gonna, whatever the reason, you get your right back automatically. And we want the artist to have the final say in this part of the process, making sure that you are selling or granting a license to adapt your novel or your work to someone with which you agree. We know how much values can come into play today. So this is something very, very important that the writer has to have the final say in the process. And this might be the most important part of what we are trying to get is remuneration provided for additional tasks assigned to the artist. Invisible work. Basically, it's all the invisible work that we have to do. When a publisher makes a book, they're gonna hire lots of people, the editor, the copy proof, copywriter, etc., the graphist, designer, illustrator, and they're gonna ask us to read and read and read and make more corrections and check the corrections, and we're gonna have to invest time and time on our own book, and we are never getting paid. We want to have a basic scale to make sure that according to the size of the means of the publisher, the writers are paid for the work they are doing, even though it's on their own book. If you're asking us to rewrite the book, to proofread the 3 versions of the book, maybe that's worth a couple of $100. So this is kind of that's the smaller rights, okay. The credits, c'est de la poutine. And also when we negotiate, I'm gonna go to remuneration. Yeah. When we negotiate based on that's the confusion I had with the the royalties and the union dues before. We have a basic formula to calculate the advance payment that you can have. And I know some publishers do not have any money, and some do have money, and it's gonna range out from the different genre of books, if either if it's young adult, poetry, history, fiction, nonfiction. So we're gonna have a formula developed, but basically what I use, what others use, is you should get 50% of the royalties of the initial print run. What that means is, um, if there's a book that is $20, you're supposed to get 10%. The initial print is 1,000 copies. Uh, so that's you should get 50% of that. So $20, 10%, that's $2 times 1,000 copies, that's $2,000. 50% of that is $1,000. That's the advance you should be able to get when you sign the contract. It might vary if you have something that's widely popular, or it might be real under if you're in poetry, or it might be nothing at all if it's a very small publisher, because some might not be able to pay you $100 more. But we can develop a scale to make sure that you get money for the work you have done, and that will not bankrupt your publisher. Um, Also, one clause that I personally have not seen, but some in my contracts, so I'm pretty lucky for that, is that your royalties, when you receive an advance, it's deductible on the royalties of the sales, so that's normal. You received $1,000 first year, the sale, or you're supposed to receive like only 600, so you're 400 short. It's non-refundable, meaning that 400 is still in your pocket and you won't get any more money until you have made the sales. But it should not be transferable if you have two or more books with the same publisher. One book sells very well, sorry, and the other one, you're way under what you've received for your advance. It cannot be transferable. The publisher cannot go and say, well, the book that is working very well is gonna reimburse what you owe me for the advance. It has to be two separate accounts. And also, this is pretty standard. We are trying to negotiate for everyone a progressive rate, meaning example that you would be starting at 10 or 12% and going up. Well, if you sell 2,000 copies, at the 2001 copy, you'd be getting 14. And if you sell over 5,000, you'd be going over 16, and so on. That can be developed. It's pretty amazing, because when you talk to new writers, they usually do not know that this can be added to their contracts, and sometimes veteran writers do not negotiate because they don't want to have to create a weird moment with their publishers, and they have lots of successful books. They have a 25-year career, and they're going to say, well, I don't have anything like that because I'm never negotiating the contract with my publisher, which is totally insane. It's a no risk clause, because if the book does not sell, does not work, well, nobody's getting more money. So if you have a 10% baseline and you need to sell 5,000 to make 14% and you only sell 1,000, the publisher doesn't lose anything. But when you have a success, both of you are going to make more money. And that's for us. You have two ways of getting a pay raise. Either it's from having lots of sales and having a progressive rate, or it's from the publisher raising the price of the book because paper costs more. That's the only way you're gonna have a pay raise. So this is pretty standard. It's some details we want the when you calculate the sales to have all titles combined. Either it's paper, if you have different ISBN for the same book. For example, my first book, after 6 months, the publisher raised the price, but the price of the book was printed on the back cover. So they had to change the cover. They had to ask for a new ISBN number because they were raising the price. So if I did not have that in my contract, that would mean the counter was beginning back at zero. So they had already sold like I think 5,000 copies at the moment. At that time, if they were starting again, that would take me longer to get to the second tier of the progressive rate. Also, if I see the time flying by, so I'm gonna skip to payment and accountability, making sure that publishers pay the authors in due time, in a regularly fashion. Either it's once a year or twice a year or whatever we come to agree upon as a normal way of paying the authors, making sure that the reports are legible and can be easily understood by the authors. I'm presently working with 5 different editors, 5 different publishers, and each of them have a different report, and some of them are very simple to understand, and others I have no idea what's going on because they refer to the titles by an internal number and it's just weird stuff. So it has to be clear what we are getting. If there's an option that has been taken on your book and they owe you money, you have to be able to find the information easily on the report of your that you're getting. And there are also clauses making sure that you can get out of the contract, which are again sometimes basic clauses that do not appear in writer's contract, uh, making sure that when the book is might go, it might be dead. Maybe the book's dead, and you're not taking care of this contract, calling your publisher to get your rights back, and you're working on something, a new project with another publisher, and you're certainly going to have a huge success, and the publisher is going to have a huge success with you, and he wants to that second publisher would like to publish their first book, but you're stuck with that first publisher because he still has 10 copies in his warehouse. You need some clauses to make sure that you can get out. If they're not willing to reprint, if they're not willing to put the book on the market, you have to be able to get your rights back. And so this is basically the same case of termination, making sure that the binding agreement is very clear, and I think that's about it. Yeah, in the law, health and safety, it's a new section of the law because we, as independent workers, did not have any recourse if we were probably heard of the Me Too movement. There was so there have been reports in the book industry that some people do not act with in the best interest of others, and s- so it was a problem. There was you might have heard of Michel Brûlé, which was a famous publisher who's been caught literally pants down in front of authors and workers. And the only recourses we had was going to the police. So in the law, there are more measures to help us navigate through this, making sure that you can have safety measures either for promotional activities with if it's someone in your publishing in the publishing house, if it's in events. So there are more safety measures, safety nets that are applicable, and but that's something else, and I haven't revised my notes for that. So if you have any question, uh, just write to us for that part, and we'll analyze it, and we'll make sure you have the right information. And I think that's about it. Yes. Since
Okay.
time it's already 8:40, so yeah.
Yeah, that's
If you
not
have any
bad.
question,
Not bad.
not
There
bad.
are no other questions in the chat, so I propose that we do wrap it up. To make things easier again for the QWF members, if you want to send questions that occur to you later to me, Lori at qwf.org, or to John at qwf.org, um, uh, we will pass them on and get an answer to you directly, I guess, from Pierre-Yves. So, yeah, so that was full of information. Wow, so much more concrete. And the documents are wonderful, and everybody has access to them. So the places that we skipped over, you can study them, and if you have questions about those,
Yeah.
come on with those.
And for the
Yeah.
list of demands, I know it might be surprising. What's important to remind ourselves is that it's not an ultimatum. I'm sure that if I've had some authors 2 years ago saying, "Well, we don't want a collective agreement. We want 15% of royalties." I say, "Sure, but we're not gonna get 15%. You might want to negotiate that with your publisher, see what he thinks." But we're going to try to have a good agreement, say, setting a baseline for everyone. And I'm sure there's lots of clause that most of us might have on one side, and on the other side, some do not have. So we're gonna raise the baseline for everyone because there's hold in our contracts. We think of something, and sometimes like we have to include new clauses for AI, making sure that I don't want any AI. I don't want an illustration done by AI on my book, and I don't want the publisher to hire to I want my publisher to hire a human being to check and copyright my book, to proofread it. I don't want it to be done by ChatGPT, but it has to be in contract form. And on the flip side, he's asking me to make sure that I don't use AI for writing my books. Fine, that's a very good clause. That's already what I'm doing. So it's stuff like that that we have to think about together. If you have something that's exceptionally good in your contract and you want to share with us, please do. It's going to benefit the others. And like I said, it's going to be a negotiation. We're probably going to start with Lanel in November. And there's some stuff like that, like the duration of the contract. When this list of demands went public after the General Assembly, some colleagues that are either publishers or work as editors, they jumped off the roof. They were saying we're gonna kill the industry. That's unreasonable. It's a negotiation. It's just a number we throw out there. That's not more unreasonable than a contract that's going to last 140 years. I, I'm sure there's a common ground that we can agree on. So there's lots of this discussion to be had over all of this.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time and getting everything translated and making it very accessible to us. We really do appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Julie who has translated the documents.
Very welcome. It was a pleasure. We have a little note about a vocabulary choice we'll work on, but
Oh, I think we don't have to work on that, actually. I looked it up already. It's really the standard for the
I
term.
know, but
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, no, I know there's no other word for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a pleasure, and thank you, Pierre, for making such a thorough presentation of the information. I think everyone will agree that UNEQ definitely has a handle, and I think the right spirit to go into this. The question we've got to all work out in the future is just how we collaborate with the English writing community. But you and I will talk, and
Yes.
anybody who's interested, obviously, reach out to me, reach out to Lori, reach out to John, and let us know. And we're interested in the input of the QWF communities. We're all coming up to speed on this a little bit because we haven't been as involved as the Francophone writers, but it's going to affect us too. So.
But we're gonna need your input and your collaboration of all the English writers because there might be some specificities on your side of the publishing world that we do not know, and we're gonna need your input on that. And we have to, so the mandate is on us to negotiate, but we are doing this for the benefit of all writers, regardless of the language. So it has to be done respectfully for the writers, for the publishers, and making sure that's in both of our interest.
That's a very good note to end on, I think. Thank you so much. Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.